Hey y'all, how you doing today? So since Infinite Magicraid globally launched, we have had an influx of ambitious tier lists flood the scene. The last tier list I analyzed reached 18,000 views thanks to the 300 likes on that, so thank you so much. And it's been a while since that video went up, so it's about time I laid it all out on the table and gave you the definitive Infinite Magicraid Epics tier list. If you want to follow along in game, then in that same description you'll find my personal Infinite Magicraid download link. Dragon Tribe houses some monster tanks and supports. Let's take a look. Whim is a sturdy wall boasting a high HP stat. Whim casts a shield equivalent to nearly half his max HP on your entire team. He then gains another turn to cast an area of effect damage reduction buff on the team as well. Finally, his damage scales with his defense stat, so you can build him as tanky as possible without hitting like a wet noodle. S tier. Teres is the epitome of a synergy required hero. She can passively increase her own burn damage, but sadly her kit is a bit too focused on everything else. Low multipliers with an average base attack means burning should be most of her damage. She defense breaks enemies, she needs effect accuracy to land the burns and debuffs, but her first skill reduces enemy resistance, so she needs less. On a burn-focused team, I would rate her a high B tier, but if she's the only burn unit on your team, then sorry, D tier. Shitter is a single target high damage attacker. The lower his HP, the more damage he can do. His passive also renders him immortal when he dies. He has an area of effect crit rate buff for the team that automatically triggers with his passive. The passive leaving him at low health combined with his second skill buff into an extra turn with the ultimate dealing increased damage the lower your health is surely one of the more veteran strategies, but a very effective one at that. A tier. Naya is a walking contradiction. Gifted with one of the highest base attacks an epic can have, her third skill multiplier is low. Her first skill does medium damage, yet all it does is inflict a single layer of bleed. Her second skill increases the team's attack, which would be perfect to pair with her ultimate's area of effect defense break. Unfortunately, the attack buff doesn't give her another turn, so she cannot utilize this combo efficiently. All around, this is not a great hero to use for, well, pretty much anything. F tier. Blade would be a decent arena stall candidate. He can counterattack against enemies with a lower defense, and his kit is very defense-oriented. His stun is for 2 turns and capable of defense breaking a target. He simply takes less damage from enemies with a lower defense. The catch being defense break could potentially gimp him so hard he would just be a sitting duck. C tier. Reeves is an actually viable bleed hero to use as opposed to Naya. He self-buffs with counterattack like Holder does and increases his own effect accuracy, which can be hard to build on bleeders. This means suiting him up with fearless sets is an ideal build for Reeves, and his ultimate shreds enemies. If he had self-sustain in his build, then he would be the perfect hero, but fearless exists, and with all things considered, I'm putting Reeves in the A tier. Joseph runs multiple 400% multipliers even with his first skill, under the right circumstances. He will need to land a provoke in order to take advantage of these multipliers. Even with them, his base attack is a measly 2500. There's a bit of self-sustain in his kit and self-buffing, but no area of effect moves. He probably isn't going to do much of anything in most of the game's content. D tier. Sword Harbor Guards has some of the most devastating bruisers epics can offer. Justy is perfect for enemy bosses that heal. All of his attacks can inflict severe wound. Then when the opponent heals, it resets the wound duration. For bosses that heal every turn like Gwyneth, this is a death sentence. He can also consistently land multiple killing blows per wave despite being single target. His attack buff affects the whole team and then he moves again. A great attacker candidate for any team. A tier. Verdo supplies the strongest attack buff to the entire team. He also passively increases your team's effect hit by 22% just by having him on the team. The effect hit buff is then increased to 44% on each teammate after he casts his attack buff. Amongst 5 total allies, that's 200% attack and 220% effect hit you don't need to build towards with equipments and artifacts. He also comes with an array of debuffs to inflict on all enemies, and he decreases turn meter. S tier. Capello may as well be Achilles. This is a 1v1 god that increases his own defense drastically, shielding himself for half his own HP every time he stuns. He supplies a damage reducing buff to the team, and finally, self-healing every turn means I will be placing Capello in the B tier. Obero is no contest one of the strongest damage dealing epics in the game. The third skill multiplier is nearly 900, and when released, Obero gains 40% more crit damage. He already inflicts the feeble status to enemies, increasing their damage taken, and to top it all off, he stacks bleed on a critical strike. Players who have gone down the Obero path will back me up. A tier. Christian is the poster child for overlooked starter heroes. Quite literally the first epic they give you. He's got an ability cycle that checks a lot of boxes. On turn 1, area of effect shield, self-attack buff, extra turn, area of effect attack, target stun. All of this is accomplished within his first turn, and his passive lowers his ultimate cooldown to prepare for it again. His damage is enough to carry you through the early game, and his shield is enough to help carry you through the mid game. S tier. Backins is a simple guy. He lands you 1 guaranteed AoE burn. His entire kit is based on getting a critical strike and landing a burn. 2 single target attacks with a chance to burn. And a maximum weapon level, the ultimate is a 100% chance to... But it really feels like this one was phoned in. Hey, we need to make a hero. A guy. That's literally Backins. F tier. C tier went on a burn-oriented team. Ross used to be a god with a 40% AoE attack bar increase, but he got the nerf hammer before we could ever see it in action. Now he's more like a modern-day Konamiya. He fills the attack bar of an ally and gives them an attack buff. This leaves room for some deadly combos if used properly. He also boosts his own AP dramatically in numerous ways, and with an ultimate that decreases the enemy AP. Nowhere near his former glory, but still nothing to scoff at. A tier. We have less Sunset Sages to look at, but they're still incredibly useful to have. Shapatite is not one of those heroes. He looks good at a glance with his 2 AoE attacks, but after building him up, you will definitely see the truth. Awful base attack, terrible multipliers, and underwhelming status effects. Even the effects he causes don't have a 100% chance to land, and they're not the most useful in the first place. If anyone ever built this guy for their team, I can promise you that they regret it now. F tier. Reliant is a pretty reliable speed optimizer. Her ability rotation on turn 1 gives an AoE speed buff to the team, AoE turn meter increase, into another turn where skill 2 puts an area of effect speed break on the enemies, and if her shield is up, it also defense breaks. It's like the Christian rotation, but with a different purpose. She also puts a 6 shield on herself every turn. S tier. Melter was carefully designed to counter all the annoying OP counter units like Holder and Malia. Maybe a bit of a kleptomaniac as well, since he's keen on stealing AP. He steals the enemy's buffs, then steals their turn meters. At least this means that the developers are aware of how strong Holder was, since they felt the need to implement a direct counter. C tier. But S tier when fighting Holder. Austic is yet another speed debuffer, but this time under the guise of an attacker. A measly 2500 base attack sells short anything promising about his kit though. His only saving grace requires weapon level 3 to even use. Not quite the hero we need for anything. D tier. Ruin is what Austic wishes he was. This hero's ultimate is an area of effect with a decent multiplier based on defense. It also reduces enemy attack bars by 40% with a chance to stun. The icing on the cake to all of this is the highest base HP an epic can have. Ruin is a perfect bruiser for arena and dungeons alike with defense break and feebleness on the second skill. If you look at his exclusive weapon, it's pretty obvious what the devs were going for here. Mascot of the game has to be OP. Double S tier. Our last sage is Lutz. He automatically has Pierce incorporated into his stats. Pierce ignores a portion of your enemy's defense, so whether he's fighting an attacker or a tank, he will still do high damage. Pierce being the only stat you can't farm for in equipments and artifacts makes this an integral part of Lutz's kit. He's also one of the few AoE attackers with built-in leech, so there's less healing to worry about. A tier. Now for Foresters, we have some damage over time attackers to look at, whose stat requirements are different from traditional attackers. Malasa has an excellent base attack which is very complementary to her 600% multiplier ultimate. Her high attack also means large poison damage, which is boosted even further by a passive. Her second skill slightly upsets the balance of her self-synergy by being a low cooldown, low multiplier attack though. If you're lucky enough to max every skill before her second, then leave it at level 4. B tier. Mafka is exactly what every poison lover wanted. A poison healer. Not only does she come with a full cleanse, but she innately increases all poison damage done by her team. Every time she inflicts poison, she decreases the enemy turn meter while refreshing their poison duration. Even if you weren't using a full poison team, she would be a great support. B tier without a poison team, but S tier with one. Stan seriously feels like the biggest tease in the poison family. His ultimate inflicts 5 stacks of poison. His poison damage also scales with his defense, which means you can build him tankier than the others. These benefits counter each other, since he would need too many stats to have a higher defense than other defense-oriented heroes. In summary, the ultimate is a cool gimmick, but he isn't practical to use. C tier. Dale's strategy is simple and clean. Get as many turns as possible and reduce enemy turns as much as possible. Every skill is based on attack bar manipulation. She would do well as a solo support or with a full team of attack bar manipulators. Attack bar strategies are always useful in every gacha game to a large degree. Some of these bosses seem impossible but are made out to be chumps that can never even land a turn. Space is popular for more than just being free. S tier. Offner is the stan of bleed, but better. She can also drop 5 stacks of bleed with her ultimate in a single turn. Her second skill can also steal buffs from the enemy, which is a niche but necessary evil sometimes. She's great for any bleed team or even as a solo bleeder. A tier. Pacino is a serious asset to any and all teams. He grants shields and heals. The damage from the ultimate is rather low, but it's really a bonus to complement all the added effects. He also has area of effect attack speed buffs and shields the team with the same skill. Finally, his first skill can reduce enemy healing, so while he increases your team's defenses, he mitigates the enemy's. Keeping in mind that this is a support, Pacino is an S tier. Sylvan is like a budget TAF. We have an AoE intertwine, which is a stun that occurs the turn after it's cast, but you have to remember that it's only a 50% chance to land. Sylvan does a bit more than just intertwine though. His second skill is a 3-in-1 attack buff, shield, and cleanse. So if your team for whatever reason was lacking those 3 things, then Sylvan could come in clutch. A tier. The Doom Legion has many beefy HP burners. Feist is real feisty. Sorry, I did not have to do that, don't leave. Feist is a ticking time bomb just waiting to detonate burn with an ultimate that hurts. He deals extraordinary detonation damage and is capable of huge hits now and then. A great complement to any burn team. C tier on a regular team, A tier on a burn team. Norma is a pretty clutch healer. Her ultimate is a stacked heal that puts invisibility on the target. Every time she receives a hit, she receives a direct heal. Her first skill also strips buffs to help deal with those pesky shield bosses. A tier. Loof is the stan of HP burning. An ultimate that can land multiple instances of HP burn and extra damage to HP burn targets. He can also restore a third of his HP on kill, making him a great candidate to carry. A tier. Liz is a healing god. Her ultimate is an AoE shield for half her health that comes with a plethora of effects. She comes with another direct heal and a first skill that has HP burning. Truly a game-changing hero. S tier. Mobus is really good for turning around a fight you normally could not win. He's able to connect his HP with an enemy so that they take a portion of the damage he takes instead. This can be the difference between getting carry soloed in arena and claiming a victory. Take the damage from the enemy and use it against them. Extremely niche but usable in occasional circumstances. D tier. Monchka is trying to be an HP burn tank. He ramps up his defense with his skill 1, but it takes 5 times using it to get the most out of it. He inflicts provoke on targets with HP burn and HP burn on targets without it. The ultimate is an area of effect HP burn ability, but with a minimal chance to land the burn. His damage isn't great to begin with, and his attacks don't scale with HP. He's supposed to be an HP burn unit, but he's truly a Russian demon with an identity crisis. D tier. Well, would you look at that, we're already halfway done. But unfortunately, that's all the time I have for today, so please like and subscribe for part 2. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later, bye.